So I thought that a fun way for us to get started today would be to play a little game called Most Likely To.
Wow.
So I'm going to ask you questions and you need to assign a fellow college squash coach
Oh boy.
to one of these scenarios. You can pass on one if you feel like you don't, no one fits that description.
Okay.
We're not going to be offending anyone, I promise. So disclaimer is out there, but we'll get started with that. How does that sound?
Sure, let's do it.
Excellent. Let's dive right in. Okay, so who do you think is most likely to hit a cross-court nick on match ball down?
Ooh, match ball down. I'm going to go with Zafi Levy.
Okay, there we go. Most likely to argue with the referee?
John White.
John White. That's excellent.
No offense, Whitey. No offense.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
So who are you most likely to go on a cross-country road trip with?
Wow. A lot of them. That would be a lot of fun. I feel like we're already on a cross-country road trip, right?
Yes.
I'd say Gilly Lane. Yeah, that'd be a blast to go with Gilly, you know?
I would want to be a part of that. I would like to join that.
Yeah,
there we go.
Yeah, we'd have fun.
Who would most likely forget to pack their squash racket and shoes for a match?
Chris Appleknapp. I don't think there'd be much squash. I think we would just kind of, we'd hit some lighthouses. We'd maybe hit some buffalo wing establishments and burger bars and right.
Who needs equipment when you got all those
need squash,
things, right?
We would just have some good times. Yep.
Exactly. Yep. There you go. Yep. Okay, last one here. Who's most likely to win a Nobel Peace Prize?
Paul Ascianti. No question. 100%.
So I was like, okay, I'm going to ask this question, and I'm almost 100% sure if I had to ask this to everyone, they would all say that.
He is also most likely to run for public office, most likely to be the mayor of Hartford, Connecticut, most likely to be president of the United States. Yeah, Paul Ascianti. Easy one. That's an easy
political trajectory right over here. We already are setting him up for success. This is his campaign.
He's just getting started.
Cosquer is his campaign manager.
I may retire from college squash coaching to help Paul Ascianti ascend to the presidency of the United States.
So you've obviously coached and played at the college level. This might be a tough question because I'm sure there's a whole bank of these in the back of your mind, but what are some of your favorite memories of being a player and then also being a coach?
Well, it's again, not to sound like a broken record, some of my favorite moments as a player was just hanging out with my teammates, on the bus, playing cards, watching movies, in the hotel rooms, watching movies, and, joking around until 2 a.m. about stupid stuff that was happening on campus, right? All of those moments have now that I'm older, I mean, I'm still friends with those guys, and we were 16, 17, 18, 19, and now we're not, and we're still friends. And so I think that's just really incredible. One memory on court that sticks out, and he's going to hate me for talking about this, but we're still friends today too, but Vivek Nair, who is Anil Nair's son, he and I sort of grew up playing together at the same club, and he had my number for a long time, and he went off to Vassar and I went to Bates, and there was one match we were playing at Princeton, not too far from where we grew up, and our parents were there, and obviously our parents were close because they would sit in the lobby there while we were taking lessons and getting match prep by Jeff Mitchell, and he went up 2-0, and the old down 0-2 win 3-2 story, but it was really special because it was 4-4 and we were at number 1 and I was down 0-2 and came back and won 3-2, and then the guys lift me up and all that stuff, and so it was it was special because I won the match for my team, but it was also special because I had sort of achieved something that I had never really achieved against a good player who had my number for a long time. And, Vivek being obviously the amazing man and person he is, I mean, just awesome, big hug. Hey, that's great. Good for you, Pat. His dad, who's just obviously a legend, came over. Hey, Pat, that's great. Good for you. And so, there was none of the racket tossed out of the court and all that stuff. It was just, it was just a really memorable moment that I think we well, I enjoyed maybe more than he did, but you know, but it's just done the right way. And yeah, so that's one that sticks out. I mean, there's a lot from my playing days and my memories going now that I'm a little bit older. But
that's why we're doing these. We're going to archive them so that we'll tune back in again after another 10
in 20 years. In 20 years, I'll have to come back to this tape. Yeah. As a coach, I mean, the easy answer is, you know, coaching Ahmed Abdelkhalik and Ahmed Hatada to the national championships, and, you know, and the round of eights and all that stuff. I mean, being, you know, this, Chanel, too, Sunday afternoon when only the top are there. I mean, that's a really special thing. And as a coach,
I ever made it to Sunday,
you might have been there and announcing, and, you know, and helping.
I was there supporting
exactly. But, yeah, me too. Right. But that's the point, you know, when it's just sort of, you know, I feel in those moments that it's what you pay your dues for. Right. I mean, all the tough parts of the job, the losing and the, you know, feeling like you're not accomplishing, and, you know, in some way, coaching Ahmed to 2 national championships and, you know, against obviously some quality opponents and quality coaches, you know, it sort of vindicates you. It makes you feel like you've been doing the right thing, you know, and because sometimes you don't feel that way. You know, sometimes you have matches and there's some road trips where it doesn't go your way, and you feel like, man, why am I doing this right? You know, and the kids aren't, I mean, you know this, the kids aren't happy, and there's tension, and, you know, you take Monday off and you come back on Tuesday and it's still there, and right. And
fresh.
Right. And so being in those moments, you know, the 2 p.m. start or the 1 p.m. start on Sunday afternoon is a good one to have. So obviously that's the easy answer. I mean, just the thrill of winning and having those trophies and being able to bring them back to my alma mater was obviously an extra layer of happiness and gratitude. But to be honest, I really, really love being on the bus, you know, Sunday afternoon. Kid comes up from the back, hey coach, can I talk to you? And we start talking about parents and job stuff and, you know, relationship stuff. And I'm there to sort of just listen. And, you know, maybe I say 3 sentences like, hey, you got this, you can do this, you know, or, hey, let me know what I can do to help you next. You know, and then seeing that young person go off and be successful and, you know, get married or whatever. And, you know, that's really why we do this, is to shape young people and to make them, to instill them with confidence so that they can go off and do whatever it is that they want to do. So there are a million memories like that. You know, the dinners at parents' houses where, you know, there's 3 plates of lasagna and there's steak over here and sushi over, I mean, it's just amazing. You know, we just have such a special community and such special parents, all of us. I mean, you know this better than I do, being an international student athlete for 4 years. I mean, the support that we get in our little game, in our little corner of the world, is it's unparalleled. So there are a million memories like that, but I just really love shaping, you know, just listening and helping kids grow and on and off the court.
Did you have any items or rituals or anything you had with you for an away match?
Oh man. So to paint this picture, now I'm bald and getting even balder. But before, when I was in college, I had dreadlocks.
We can Photoshop some.
Yeah, I had. There's probably a picture in this office somewhere, but I had dreadlocks.
We'll have to bring that up. Bring that
college.
up.
Yeah, I know. We'll find it in the archives. Black and white pictures back then. Yeah, so I had dreadlocks. So that was a weird thing. I mean, there weren't very many college squash players with dreadlocks, and the other ones did not wash their hair. So so I had like this weird sort of bandana thing that I had to do. But I really I leaned into it hard, you know, and so I just looked like a complete nut out there.
Gotta commit to it.
Yeah, I mean, that was like, you know, if I'm a unicorn, I'm gonna be the unicornist unicorn, you know. So so that was kind of my thing, was like, just, I would like lay out I mean, everyone sort of does this, but like lay out the clothes and, okay, with this uniform, you want the white bandana. And that was back in the day. You probably weren't even born, Chanel, but we would have like the full bandanas, like the
Oh yeah,
old like country band. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, it wasn't a headband. It was like a bandana, you know, like old men wipe their noses with, you know?
I'm definitely going to be finding these photos of you.
I'll send you one for the website. Yeah. So that was my thing. I mean, I'm still like this too, I guess, but like laying out the clothes before, you know, in the hotel bed, and then my roommate or teammate would come in and like knock the thing off the bed, and I have to do it again. And, you know, I was like a very type A student athlete. Yeah, I mean, I did take notes also. I wouldn't call myself like a real great student, but things that I care about, I take notes for. So I would write down, you know, opponents and their tendencies, and, you know, my sort of like if I ate something that helped me, and things like that. So yeah, I was pretty ritualistic. I got into self-hypnosis a little bit in college as well, which and
Wow.
yeah, and some self-help stuff. Back in the day, what's his name? Tony Robbins was pretty big. And
Okay.
so I got into Tony Robbins a little bit, and that like messed with me a little bit, but also like made me kind of like a little bit more aggressive, maybe. So yeah, I mean, yeah, I was a little bit type A and compulsive about my squash. But I also sort of knew that, like, I also had baseball to even things out. And you know, like you with rowing, I mean, it's like it's a really great experience when you don't focus on one thing all the time, you know. And I just, you know, I learned a lot. I mean, I sort of took what I learned from each session or each squash match and applied it to the big picture. And you know, my squash, I was okay, but it made me such a stronger person. You know, having to battle and how, you know, losing more, you know, and then winning, and like it just makes you stronger, right? All that adversity and all the ups and downs make you a stronger human being.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Talking about strong, and what is the most epic match you, or if you remember, most epic match you coached?
There were a few. I've seen some really, really weird stuff. Yeah, I mean, even that, I mean, good and bad weird, you know what I mean? Yeah, the first few years, I mean, the women, we were at like maybe 16, 17, 18-ish, and the battles against Mount Holyoke, you know, where at the top you'd have like Pam Ankerman and Sherry Ann Paris, but it went all the way down to like two tennis players that like hit two-handed backhands, you know what I mean? And it's just like the dichotomy of that. Like you're watching two top players.
Messes with your mind.
Right? Like hit like cross court nicks off the serve, and, you know, and they're just like doing amazing things. And then you go to the, you know, from the number 1 court to the number 9 court, and like the ball's bouncing 3 times, and there's, you know, top spin backhands and stuff. And but and that was when Alan Fitzsimmons was coaching. And you know, so every match was 5-4, you know, and you never really knew who was going to win, because the number 9 kid sometimes would switch out. And like I had a lacrosse player who was friends with a couple of the women on my team, and she was like, well, hey, I'm a pretty good athlete and I'm friends with these women anyway. Like, can I play squash? Yeah, of course. Right. And there she was playing number 9 for like 14th place in the country against Mount Holyoke. And, you know, two-handed backhand and couldn't return a serve, but like she would round her serve, you know, like it was amazing. On the men's side, I mean, the F&M in the beginning of my Bates career, the F&M matches with Gabe and Guy DeMello, and Whitey was there at that time. So, you know, it was already just like, okay, epic. You know, like, I'm going to beat you. No, I'm going to beat you. Right. And like we were playing each other, which we were not, obviously. But there's, you know, Whitey brings a whole nother level of competitive nature to a college squash match, which I love. And just, I mean, some of our players would like, they just did not, there was no love lost between our guys. And so, so Whitey and I would sit and sort of deliberate about how we were going to ref the match, like how we, you stand over there and watch hit those guys while I'll stand over here and watch these guys, because we knew that at some level there would, something would sort of pop off, so it's not ideal, but those matches would always be 5-4 or 6-3. And then Zafi and I, Zafi, the Bates Williams thing. I mean, Bates College, I'm going to plug my alma mater. I mean, Williams squash had beaten Bates every single time until like 2011 or something, 2012. And when we won, we knew, this was like on the locker room door, like Williams College, like 673-0 against Bates. Right. And so, and so I was like, this, in my mind, I'm like, this is the team that can do it. Right. And we won like 7-2 or something. And the Williams parents' heads are popping off, and our girls were, right. And we're just like, and, I mean, I guess that kind of started a whole nother rivalry, because it's not really a rivalry if one team's just crushing the other, and then from that point on, then the men would go 5-4, and then we started beating the men, which was a whole nother level. And then we did it on the same day at the same time, so Bates College beats Williams College. And our president at the time, actually, she's still at Bates, she went to Williams. And so then she, she's at the match wearing a purple sweater, and she's getting calls from her Williams trustees like, why is Bates College squash beating, like Williams squash is an institution, like how are we losing to Bates, like, don't they have like rented squash courts or something? Right. Like, where is Bates? What is that? And here we were like beating them consecutively. So that became a thing. And similarly to Middlebury, John Illig leaving Bates to go to Middlebury was sort of a slap in our face, even though obviously we understand that move and Middlebury's a great place. We're like, well, if you're going to leave, like, get out of here then. Right. And then he built up a really good team there, and they started to beat us. And then we're like, well, that can't happen. And so, so I think the NESCAC, as the NESCAC just sort of brings out that competitive nature anyway, because everyone's competing at that level, the presidents and the admissions offices and advancement, we're all competing against each other. So those are special times. And now it's a little bit of St. Lawrence, I guess. I mean, we're all friends, but and Martin at Rochester, I mean, that's a cool little thing that we have. We're not very far from Rochester here in Geneva, and they're obviously much better than we are, but I'd like to sort of get to that spot where we're pushing up against them, and in a way that Bates did with Trinity, right? Where we could sort of pick off a couple matches there, and a 6-3 loss is like a good loss, which in my mind is sort of a weird thing. I don't really think that way, but when you see your whole team celebrating after you just lost 6-3, it's sort of like, you can't be the downer in the group, So anyway, there are a ton of memories. I think that the overarching issue is that, or the comment is just that we're friends. I mean, we're compatriots and friends and colleagues and rivals all at the same time. And it's messy sometimes. It's, it's complicated sometimes, for sure. There's some years where we're not friends. And then there's other times where we are friends, and it's the same person. And that's life, right? That's adult life. That's relationships. I wouldn't have it any other way. It's taught all of us so much. As college squash sort of moves into maybe a new thing with US squash or whatever we're going to do. I mean, I would hate to lose what we have with our people, right? I mean, we're such a unique squash family that, I hope we can keep that intact. I hope we can keep the characteristics of who we are and what we have with each other intact. And yes, I want to see college squash develop, and I want to see it grow, and I want to see us, bring in more money and all those, and get more teams and all that. But as you said earlier, Chanel, the people is what really makes our product arguably the best squash product on the planet. And I would argue that for sure.